Welcome to Blade HQ, everybody. Today is October 9th, 2023, and because some guy in the comments a couple of weeks ago was crowing about not having enough fixed blades, we've got 5 of them today, plus a few folders. Let's get into it. First knife on the table, new from Essie Knives, is the Sencillo, I believe is how it's gonna be said. The 2 L's make the Y sound in Spanish, I believe. This translates to simple, means simple in Spanish, and as you can see, it's a fairly simple knife. It's got this nice bulbous micarta handle and an A2 carbon steel blade, and then a very nice snappy Kydex sheath. So one thing you'll notice about this is you'll look around and I do not see the word Rowan on here. This one is not made in the Rowan factory up in Idaho. However, I'm looking at this Kydex sheath, and this is where I think they're gonna show their hand. This Kydex sheath is very, very nicely contoured to the knife. It snaps really well, has plenty of stuff, but it's not too much. A nice big belt loop, carry it scout style if you care to. White River makes sheath this good. I'm calling it. I think White River made this knife. I could be wrong, I could not be wrong, but either way, if White River made it, they make really good knives. And this one is no exception. Very even grinds, a very nice sharp edge, very slicey with this belly here. I'd almost call this like the Izula 3, almost? I don't know. I would say that because the Izula is small, and they made the Izula 2, which has a larger handle but the same size blade. This one not only beefed up the handle, but it beefed up the blade quite a bit as well. Very nicely done, Essie. This is just a great knife. It's a solid design all the way around. Something you could definitely count on, and it's still backed by Essie's incredible warranty. Basically, whatever you do to this, if it breaks, they'll replace it, no questions asked. Which is a guarantee almost no knife can offer. Next up, new from GiantMouse, we have the Nazca. And this Nazca is not quite like the Nazca we've had before. It still has the wire pocket clip, but now we have the carbon fiber handles and a satin finished CPM Magna Cut blade. Loving to see all the Magna Cut make its way to the GiantMouse lineup. Very, very good. I gotta say, when I first got to take one of these out for the weekend last summer, and it just was such a good knife. I really like the way this handle works with my hand. I know that some of my coworkers say it doesn't quite work for them, but it just does perfectly for me. My finger wants to land right where this ledge ends, and it just grips really nice. And then you have access to this needle-like point. It's just so good. A nice slick action. I want to say that's running on bearings. Only bearings get that smooth. But yeah, solid lockup, carryable, but nice and stout handle. So it's gonna be good to use in your hand as well as keep in your pocket. Very nicely done GiantMouse. It goes for 7.4 inches overall with a 3.2 inch blade. It's a very nice size. Nothing too big, nothing too small, and you can get one right now for $265. Next up, new on the kitchen knives front, we have the QSP Mulan series. And this one, so I'm gonna give you some specs on this knife. A 14C 28N blade with a distal taper around its spine, so that way if you're gonna be doing any of this crazy stuff, it's not gonna hurt you, and you're also gonna get a very precise tip. Nice hardening as well, and then a solid ebony handle with the hidden tang and the polished off backside, so you're not gonna get any exposed anything. Very well built, well apportioned knife. How much do you think this is gonna cost you? My guess when I first saw this is I would pay $200 or $300 for that knife. Listen, $95.20 for the big Yuto right here. You can get the smaller ones for even less. And if you want to pay 200 bucks, you can get the iron wooden Damascus ones. Absolutely incredible value for very high-end kitchen knives from QSP. So this one's your full-size chef's knife, probably an 8-inch blade right there, but they make a Santoku, they make a Petit, I guess, like a paring knife. And the paring knife comes with a leather sheath too. I was talking to David, one of the reps they have, and he was saying that you could use that leather sheath and make it like your everyday carry knife. Can you imagine everyday carrying a kitchen knife? I know that for everything I do in my daily life, a kitchen knife would probably be pretty good. Those super pointy points and thin blades will glide through packaging, which I do cut a lot of. and it'll also make really quick work of food, which I cut a lot of as well. They're easy to clean, they're easy to use, they're familiar. If you hand it to somebody else, they already know how to use it. And also, if you're gonna carry a 3-inch fixed blade in your pocket, would you rather it look like this and then bust this out at work, or would you rather it look like a standard kitchen knife? Yeah, I carry a kitchen knife around because I cook food from time to time, but it can also do all your other everyday carry tasks. Just saying, you could do a whole lot worse than a kitchen knife as your everyday carry. But that comes from the Mulan series as well, and those ones are even cheaper because they're a lot smaller, but you're still getting those ebony and 14C28N. Very nicely done. And by the way, this knife is incredibly sharp, and the big one did not come with a sheath, so I'm gonna set it over here so I don't cut myself on it for the rest of this video. I hope you'll forgive me. Next up, from Revo Knives, we have another variation on the Nexus. So we've seen the two-tone one. We had the black anodized with the polished flats, and now we got the blue in the polished flats. Very exciting as well. Because what I love about butterfly knives is because people are doing cool tricks that they want people to see, because I guess the old question about a writer is, would a writer write if no one would ever read it? But would a belly flipper flip if nobody could ever see them flip? I don't think so. I think every time a ballet flipper is flipping, they're thinking, hey, better do a cool trick, somebody's watching. I know that's what I do when I'm walking down the road flipping my Talisong. But I really do appreciate that they're coming out with those fancy colors and the two tones on the Revo Nexus. And I learned a few things about the Revo Nexus lately that I think make it one of the best all-around butterfly knives, especially for beginners. First of all, Revo is a subsidiary of BRS. And BRS is known for making their super high-end competition Balisongs. In fact, I was talking to one of our buyers, Justin, over here, and he was saying, he collects Ballies, by the way. He's saying if he could only have one Balisong for the rest of his life, it'd be a BRS replicant. Very good choice. However, replicants are few and far between, and when they are here, they sell out fast. But this one is here, and it's made in quantity, right in Colorado, so it's USA made. And also, this one has a few features that make it very easy to maintain. So you got your Torx hardware and everything, but if you look inside, I have to catch this with B-roll, there are double pockets milled inside the handles for the pins. So that way, you can't assemble the Balisong wrong. Every single one of the handle scales is identical. I know that on the BRS Alpha Beast, if you don't know what you're doing, you can assemble it so that the patterns of the handles clash. It doesn't work properly. You have to know exactly which scale goes where. But here, all 4 scales can work in any position, and you can position the pin properly in either way. So you can't mess up putting this knife back together. So when you get it out to clean out the bearings and oil your pivots and everything, it's not gonna be any trouble at all to get it up and running. I really like how wide and thick the handles are. They remind me of channel handles, but they're sandwiched. So you get sort of the comfort and feel of a channel handle, but also the ease of maintenance of a sandwich style. Very well done, Revo Knives. Next up, we have my second favorite knife from SHOT Show this year, and that is the Acta Non Verba M311 Spelter Compact. My favorite knife from SHOT Show this year was the MKM TPF Defense, but this one might have to take the cake because this one's actually here. I haven't seen a TPF Defense yet, but when it gets here, I'm gonna buy the first one. But that is neither here nor there. We are focusing now on this Actinon Verba, which is a truly incredible knife. I remember when this brand first made it to Blade HQ, they brought out the M311, and I fell in love with its design. It is beautiful. It seats the thumb nicely, these nice crown spines, this very interesting swedge that both reinforces the tip and reduces the weight. Very good work. Made in the Czech Republic, LMAX steel, micarta handles. They're just so good. But the original M311 is big. It is a huge knife. And I have, I would say, slightly smaller than average hands, and it was almost prohibitively big to me. And then I found out from Victor at SHOT Show, when he was telling me about this, is the M311, the big one, was made for Czech Republic-based military operatives. And they wanted something that was bigger because a lot of them had bigger hands, they used gloves a lot, and they needed a big tactical knife that could take it made right there in the Czech Republic. But there are people like me who are of normal size and stature who wanted the M311, but it was just too big, and they listened. Like, I don't even think anybody asked, they just knew that we wanted it. And they came out with the compact, and it is just the perfect size. A very nice outdoor, tactical, camping, what have you knife. And the sheath is a very nice Kydex sheath, as Acta Non Verba is known to make. And this one comes with molly loops, so you can put it on a backpack, upside down on a vest. I might pop it off and I might do an ulti clip or something and do a scout carry or on the hip or something, because such a good knife. I'm gonna have to talk to the boss and see if I can get me one of these. I'm gonna fight hard for it because it's a really awesome knife. Those are going for $244. I was reading the Nexus price. $244, you get 9.3 inches overall with a 4 and change inch blade. 4.5. Sorry, my pen was dying when I was writing down my notes today. All right, next up, Reef Knives F4 Scandi. So Reef Knives came out, I wanna say 2022 when we first saw them here at Blade HQ. And they had flat grinds, and that is my jam. I love me a flat grind on my outdoor bushcrafty knives because that's just what I'm used to. And I know that this is a hot take, but the flat grind does a whole lot better through food than the Scandi does, and because of that, I generally prefer flats. However, we did a fixed blade video, and I talked about the Reef in there, and they're like, hey, you can't do that, you need a Scandi on your woods knife. I disagree, a Scandi's great, but I prefer the flats. But for all of you guys who prefer the Scandis, Stu over at Reef Knives has you covered. Because the F4 is here, and now we have a very nice micarta handle, CPM 3V in classic Reef fashion, and a zero-edge Scandi blade that is one of the most wickedly sharp things I have ever touched. And the sheath that comes with it is incredible. Very nicely made all the way around, double stitching, and nice thick welt, and it has a nice large opening, so it's easy to get the knife to safety, and then it pushes down and it gets nice and solid. And I don't know if you can quite see this on camera, but you can see where the little nubbin of the guard sits. So if I were to hold it like this, you can see where this pops out. If this were my sheath, what I would do is I would take some water and I would wet form it around like that. You can get the sheath to almost snap like Kydex at that point. So good on the leather, so good on the knife. USA made. Reef Knives, you're killing me. These are really good. And these ones are going for $334 with a 9-inch overall length and a 4-inch blade. Very nicely done, Reef Knives. Next up from Tops, we have the Spirit Hunter. And this one, I must confess, if I were gonna pick a fixed blade on the table, I'd be torn between these two. This one feels a lot more like a hunting knife, and its handle just wants a slightly bigger hand than mine. You can see these little grooves right here. So if you've got some bigger hands, if you work out more than I do, or you're a bigger fella, this is gonna be perfect. I know that Dallas, one of our buyers, has perhaps the biggest, meatiest hands I've ever encountered, and this knife is so good for his hand. He loves it. So you've got the bigger hands and you're like, none of these knives are ever good for big hands. This knife is good for big hands. You can choke up here and get access to that really nice recurve section here for doing all your fine carving stuff. And then a very deep and slicey belly for all your skinning. A hunting knife through and through. Very nicely done Tops. I love this green micarta, green G10. It's a very coarse G10 if it's a G10, or it's a very fine micarta if it's a micarta. I don't know, it kind of walks the line, and then a black liner on there. Very nicely done Tops. Leather sheath comes stock with a ferro rod for starting all your fires and all that other stuff. And I like how they finished the edge here. They gave it a nice burnish and they covered all the edges here. Just a lot of attention to leather work from modern USA made fixed blades. Thank you so much for all you makers doing that. These ones are made of 1095, and this one has a micarta handle, I looked it up, and a 4.75 inch blade. Goes for $167.95, USA made, a great value as well. Then lastly on the table is the most anticipated knife for me here, and that is the Cold Steel 5 Max. So you've seen the 8010, and then his big brother, the 4 Max, and I have a 4 Max Scout because the 4 Max was a bit spendy for me, but the 5 Max is just so big, and I love it. It's like a folding survival knife. You got a full 5-inch blade there, and this big old handle, and if you choke up here, you can get 2 hands on it. It's just a big old knife. It's old school Cold Steel. Especially old school Cold Steel because this is a straight up Demco design, like most of the Cold Steels we know and love are. This one has the S35 VN blade and the G10 handles. It is definitely the the premium version, and it kind of comes at that price as well. These are going for $319.95. Now, one channel I indulge in a lot is Stasa23 Knife Therapy, is that what it is? Anyway, he got one of these and he was talking about it. And he talked about how the Atlas lock and the Triad lock have sort of become the question of cold steel knives. And he was saying he's glad that this one uses the Triad lock instead of the Axis lock because of how huge this blade is. With the Triad lock, it's like a lockback sort of, where it will maintain some pressure on the blade, allowing you for a much more controlled closure. But with the Atlas lock, as bomb-proof and incredibly strong as it is, it turns into a guillotine when you do this. And that's why when you do it with this, like when the Mayhem comes, I know a lot of you are waiting for the Mayhem. The Mayhem is one where you don't want to like be actuating that with your thumb and then trying to swing it closed, because that thing will hurt you if you're not careful, like any knife will. But I really appreciate that this one uses the Triad lock because, first of all, that's faithful to the custom that Andrew Demko made. But also, it's gonna be a lot harder to guillotine your fingers off with a big, heavy knife like this using the Triad lock instead of the Atlas lock. And I really appreciate that Cold Steel's looking out for us like that. However, if you disagree with me and you prefer the Atlas lock, there's still plenty of big ol' Atlas locks coming out soon. So keep your eye out for Cold Steel. They are doing some really awesome stuff. Anyway, there's some new knives for you out there who was begging for more fixed blades. I hope you've enjoyed. And I know that the 5 Max isn't a fixed blade, but it is bigger than, is it even longer than the kitchen knife? It's not, but it's giving it a run for its money. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed. If you like what you see, subscribe to Blade HQ for more knife content, and we'll see you next time.